It's time for the very best players in the world to play on brand new StarCraft 2 maps. What I've got for you today is a best of 7, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on a map called Spirit Crusher. And spawning right here in the top right hand corner, playing with the blue Protoss pieces. You know him, you love him. We're looking at none other than MaxPax's main Nexus. His opponent, down in the bottom left, playing with the red Terran SCVs. He goes by the name of Clem. This particular series is the semi-finals of the Team Liquid map contest tournament. So all of the games in these games, or all of the matches rather in this series, they are going to be played on brand new StarCraft maps. These are not finalized yet. I mean, I can imagine we will still see some small adjustments if something really noticeable pops up. And none of these are confirmed for ladder play just yet, but these are the ones that are most likely to make it onto the ladder at some point in the future. Now, sorry, my mouse wasn't working properly. I will try now, but if it happens again, I will change mouse. All right. We're just changing mouse mid-series now? That's a brand new sentence. Not something we generally see in StarCraft 2. Now, I haven't seen a single game yet on Spirit Crusher, so I'm excited to find out exactly how this map plays out. But we have a best of 7 here, so we are going to see quite a few new maps here, I'm sure, and ones that I have personally also not seen any games on just yet. So who better to show us what is supposed to be done than these two? Let's see. I'm not really expecting, by the way, a whole lot of early game variety. So these players are relatively straightforward, right, with their early games. I mean, MaxPax sometimes will go into some sort of Stargate play, but I feel like Stargate in general for Protoss versus Terran is just a little bit difficult to pull off. And especially when you're not super comfortable with new maps, it's very likely that these players have just played, like, maybe this is like their second or their third game on any of these maps. I would imagine that MaxPax is most likely just going to go for Blink Stalker pretty much every single game here, although I'd like to be proven wrong. And if I were to make a guess, Clem is going to be playing that macro-focused early game that he is so very fond of. Maybe a bit of variety. Maybe we'll see some Cyclones, maybe we'll see some, you know, shenanigans with drops and all that, but across the board, I mean, this should be a very normal early game, because that's what both of these players like to do. So we have a large main base, a little jump-up location over here, it seems, for the Reaper to be able to get in. Overlord Pillar, although that's not particularly relevant. A standard width to the wall off over here in the natural. No ramp leading down from the natural to the rest of the map. I mean, there is a ramp over here, but that does mean that some of the early game aggression can be done without needing high ground vision. So generally, the more wide open a map is, as far as the natural expansion goes, the more aggressive a map also becomes. This was a Zealot start, and we do now have a Twilight Council on the back of this. Nothing all too surprising there. And we are going to start just putting in a bit of hurt. He really wants to kill the SCV that's building the command center, but that's not going to happen for now. Good targeting here. Yeah, 2 of those Marines have gone down. SCV falls as well, at the single cost of a Zealot. Not bad whatsoever, and there is a second Adept now following this up too. This is one of those scenarios where, as a Terran, you really wish you opened up with quick Cyclones, because that makes defending this sort of thing 10 times easier. The Jimmies are coming out, though, 2 at a time. The Reactor here, of course, helping out quite a bit. Can I continue touring the map, MaxPax? Are you done? Spoiler alert, he's gonna kill like 1 more Marine. And then, yeah, the Cyclone will come out, and this is all gonna get pushed away. Oh my god, we're still dancing. There is, of course, another expansion north of this as well, and then another alternative third base too. This is a very normal-looking map, right? I mean, in all the years that we've seen StarCraft 2 maps, we figured out what works and what doesn't. And this is one of those maps that just sort of follows the absolute basics. At the very least, that's the vibe I'm getting. Not really seeing anything immediately that jumps out at me as a little bit abnormal, although obviously not every map needs to be crazy. We do need to be, I think we probably want to have like 5 out of the 9 maps be very quote-unquote normal, and this could certainly fulfill that category. A little bit of a twist, I guess, with these inward-facing expansions, so the map is not perfectly mirrored in that regard. I mean, it's mirrored, you know, from top left all the way towards bottom right, and then flipped to either side of the map, but we get a bit of variety there. There is this massive wide open space in the far top left over here, and then I'm assuming, yeah, a similar location too in the far bottom right. They are just begging for proxies. I mean, there's just no mineral line there. All right, now Blink is finishing up. There's already a Prism available. Clem has decided to throw the kitchen sink at the opponent too. as he's just bringing everything that he's got. Generally speaking, though, this is where MaxPax is incredibly scary, and this is a 4-gate. So rather than the conventional 2 to 3 gateways that he's so very fond of, this is a 4-gate committed push. MaxPax was planning on going for what is pretty much an all-in, and he is going to be able to get every single one of those Terran units. The only question is really, how much damage is he going to take? And so far, it's not a whole lot. Nope. Easy cleanup right here by MaxPax. Loses 4 Stalkers for it, though, but I mean, getting the Medevac, getting the Siege Tank, then all of those other units, too. You know that Terran is going to be pinned back to their bases. Maybe there's a Liberator or something like that going across. You can never really guarantee that Terran is not going to make that transition, but this is certainly now going to be MaxPax's time to shine. He's decided to go for a 3rd Nexus on the back of this. So, of course, we will be seeing another additional bit of worker production here as well for the Danish Protoss player. But he's now the one who gets to be aggressive. Maybe he can even snipe something like, for example, Stimpack, right? Like, we don't see the upgrade yet. But with this particular spawn location, you can go into the main base pretty easily, it looks like. Potentially snipe the tech lab, and then get back out. There's a single siege tank currently protecting this. Yeah, it is not that big of a blink spot over here, though. Not a very easy location to be just blinking 100 Stalkers in. But it seems to me that MaxPax wants to go for the kill. He doesn't really care so much about little pickoffs. I mean, he wants to deal critical amounts of damage. Getting the bunker there is good. Getting the siege tank there is good, too. Another siege tank, though, has just rolled out of the factory. There's an observer up on the high ground now, basically spotting exactly what's going on. Single Liberator here being a bit annoying, but the Stalkers that are warped in defensively are going to be able to make quick work of that. So far, though, good defense by Clem. It's just that I'm not sure that he has enough units. Like, the Stalker numbers are still growing, and they're growing much quicker than Clem can deal with them. Not the perfect control, though, for MaxPax that we have come accustomed to. Maybe I'm being a little overly critical, but I've seen MaxPax pull off some ridiculous micro, especially with Blink Stalkers and especially with a Prism. Huh, I thought actually you could blink down onto... no. It kind of looks like with this bush over here that you could blink onto the grassy low ground, but apparently this is dead space, and then the low ground continues over here instead. Maybe a visual update for that would be nice. Either way, this map looks excellent. Yeah. Can't really find any major complaints. There's a little bit of variety. Oh, you know what? There's a weird... As we do see the Stimpack now getting sniped. And he already got the other upgrade too. Oh, yeah. This is really not what Clem was hoping for. There's a giant square on the minimap. Is this because units flew by it? I guess it is. Yeah. Units must have crossed the exact outside of the map. I think this must have been Clem's units going around. I thought for a second there was a graphical glitch with 2 black squares on the minimap, but not actually what is the case here. Now, there is a 3rd command center on the back of this for Clem. There's also now a Dark Shrine coming for MaxPax. MaxPax has been pumping out those workers, and he is already building up a 4th Nexus right around the same time that Clem is securing a 3rd. Now, even though all of the little engagements have been going better for MaxPax, this is still Clem we're talking about, and Clem can not really, really ramp up yet, but Clem is very well known for that extreme multitasking, right? So, Clem is certainly somebody who can come back here if he can start dropping into locations, do a main push, right? He can micro multiple fights all at the same time. Stalker for a Medevac, good trade, of course, for MaxiPax, who did now go for an expansion that is leading in the direction here of where Clem has expanded to as well. Robo Bay on the back of this, so he's going to be able to go into Colossus in just a moment. Stimpack and Combat Shields, though, are so extremely late, and that is what's making all of this very hard. Good little run by with those Zealots. He gets the Medevac there, too. GG gets cold, and MaxPax makes it look easy in game number 1. Okay, next up, we find ourselves on Kill Switch. Now, do you think Clem's, what was it? Spirit. Yes, do you think his spirit has been crushed? Loco, you're so funny. I'm going to hit the like button. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. Anyways, now we find ourselves on Kill Switch. I remember this map now that I'm looking at this very cursed-looking mini-map. I haven't seen a single game on it yet, but this is weird. So, the players have not spawned in the conventional, like, top left versus bottom right or whatever. They're not in the corners. Instead, they are in the middle of the map. In order to make that reasonably balanced and actually playable, apparently we have had to jump through a couple different hoops. So first off, we have 2 of those. Obviously, it's mirrored on the other side, right? We have 2 of these red circles that are set up around the perimeter of the main, and these are inhibitor zones. So essentially what happens is they slow down units that try to get through them, and in this case, well, it's only really flying units that I can think of. Specifically, I would imagine warp prisms and medevacs. So if you fly through those, well, you find yourself, slowed down significantly. Then right next to it, we have a lot of these skinny mineral fields that lead towards an in-main Xel'Naga watchtower. Now, I'm not sure how I feel like an in-base Xel'Naga tower, but if we had to have one of those, I think this is a pretty good implementation of it, right? Like, I don't think it's bad. So you mine out the skinny mineral fields. It does mean, I mean, you could also only just mine out, I think you actually do. Yeah, you probably just mine out like these 3 over here. It's probably like 2 trips for each worker to mine out. It's probably 14 minerals. And you take the watchtower and you get a good bit of vision. There's an overlord pillar over here too. Another overlord pillar over there. We have more skinny mineral fields in the back of the natural expansion. No overlord pillar in the natural though. There seems to be a Reaper jump up pad in this particular instance, although it seems to me that Clem has not actually opened up with any sort of Reaper. He's decided to just go straight into the Marine instead. So all of this is a little bit funky and a little bit different. MaxPax, though, has decided to ignore the map's mechanics altogether as he is feeling feisty. We are just gonna go straight into full aggression. Yep. Proxy Gateway going up on the other side of the map. Now, this is an expansion on the back of this. So, I mean, Clem is not scouting, but if he were to go across the map right now, I guess he would be able to tell that everything is reasonably normal. This is still something, though, that is certainly holdable for Clem. If he loses one of those... Oh, there's a giant circle in the middle, too. Actually, multiples. So there's a rock tower over here. There's 2 rock towers, actually. Do you think the rock towers maybe destroy the inhibitor zones when they collapse? There's a chance that they do. Very interesting map. It looks absolutely ginormous. But I've got a feeling that if it's up to MaxPax at the very least, we're not going to see any of those interesting features. Because MaxPax is looking to end this game within the next few minutes. There is a Twilight Council in the back of this, so we probably will still just go into additional upgrades. But this should be him just continuously hitting the opponent in the face with as many troops as possible. I don't know if I like it all too much, though. So compared to the previous map, compared to Spirit Crusher, we don't actually have a flat natural expansion, right? So the natural expansion has a ramp leading down, and it's the same over here as well with this little mineral wall. Not really something you can offensively mine out. You would have to pull 4 workers for it. You need high ground vision here as MaxPax. He loses the adepts? I'm not so sure about any of this, Max. This is not nearly as clean as the previous game. And you're always going to take at least a couple of shots of damage when you're trying to, go up and down that ramp. So this is much easier to defend here for Clem than it was in the previous one. And I like this bunker positioning too for Clem. Just going into the good old bunker. There is a Widow Mine, by the way, that was dropped in the meantime on the other side of the map. Max is going to sacrifice a probe for it, as he did spot it, but the medevac has gone back home safely. Liberator also going across. And since all of the units are being warped in on the other side of the map... Yeah. No, I don't think this is it. Now, something else that I'm a little uncertain of as a StarCraft commentator. Oh, he's going to find the gateway. Yeah, he's going to be able to shut down that pylon at this rate, which is going to be real nice. Generally, what I like to do with the scoreboard and the production tab and all that is to have the player that spawns in the top of the map, in the top of the scoreboard. It's actually one of my caster pet peeves whenever I see other people casting games and the scoreboard is flipped in the wrong direction. One of my very few caster pet peeves. I think it's a little annoying. This is a map that's a little bit funky because technically MaxPax, at least at like the horizontal axis, he spawned north of Clem. However, he's expanding south, and it kind of looks now at the... Do you think I should flip the scoreboard? Because it kind of looks now, if you look at the minimap, that Clem is spawned... Alright. Not sure what the correct solution is. We're gonna just commit? Really? I don't know about that one, Max. Max has got like 3 units and a dream. I don't think this is it. Liberator still being an absolute nuisance. And compared to the previous game, MaxPax is not achieving really anything. I think he probably underestimated this map a little bit. Maybe he hoped that he was gonna, I don't know, maybe go up against a Terran who would mine out the back door like that. Or maybe he would be able to fight in a natural expansion. Either way, I don't think we will ever know what MaxPax is thinking here, but I don't think this was really the original plan. Going for a proxy gate and then into a Twilight Council is also a little funky. Okay, now the main problem here for the Protoss is, of course, that Clem hasn't really lost anything. And with Clem not losing anything, I mean, he doesn't have his upgrades done yet. He can't really go for an aggressive push just yet. But, oh, okay. Well, he's got a push coming in a couple minutes from now, and MaxPax knows that it would kill him, so he decides to just leave right now. A little bit of an early, but a little bit of an early GG, but we're playing a best of 7. Next up, we find ourselves on a map called Killer's Mile. Now, with this particular map, without looking it up, I even remember the nickname of the map creator, because his nickname is Killer Smile. He made a map called Killer's Mile. I mean, fine. Fine, we'll let you get away. Fine, it's all right. That's a good joke. I like it. All right, so that's really the only thing I remember of the map. I don't actually recall anything else, but let me look around. Maybe I'll... So we have a low ground expansion over here. This looks like a bit of a funky setup, especially with a little ramp over here that seemingly has some debris on top of it. Yeah. So you can send units down, but this is relatively easy to access. And then there's a giant flat space over here too. Oh, I remember this map. This is the map where I envisioned Protoss players playing Skytos. Look at this. Dang. Alan's karaoke bar has got that big screen. You love to see it. You can play your Wonderwall or whatever. Smooth operator. You can do everything at the karaoke bar here with that type of screen. This map, right? It seems like it's a super easy natural, super easy third, super easy fourth, super easy fifth, and maybe even a sixth and a seventh that are quite accessible. Yeah. This is a map that I didn't immediately love the look of. At least just looking at the layout, right? Like just looking at a flat JPEG, just an image. I didn't like the look of it too much because it seemed to me like you could turtle to your heart's content. Now, I would like to be proven wrong. I would actually prefer it if it is not a turtle map. I do believe that every map pool does need a turtle map, so maybe this, you know, can be that type of style. But across the board, this one just seemed a little bit too passive. Maybe it's also because currently in the current map pool we have, well, for example, Abyssal Reef and Neon Violet Square and King's Cove. I just don't really like those maps too much because they're so big and so macro focused. And I'm just a little tired of it because there's so many of them right now. But yeah, maybe if we get a full refresh of the entire map pool, we can, you know, maybe add like one, maybe two of those types of maps. Having 3 of them. And then also like some other passive maps too that are brand new, I guess, from, you know, the previous TOMCs. It isn't my favorite setup, I'll be honest. Now, I do know, by the way, that I talked to Wardy about this. Wardy mentioned that in a lot of the tournaments that he is organizing, so this is actually one of the events that Wardy also, you know, puts on, TOMC. I mean, there's a lot of other people involved too, but he's the one, I believe, at the very least, that is organizing the professional tournament for this. He mentioned that for other events that he's running, which he's doing pretty much every single day, you should go check out his Twitch channel, but he is switching out those 3 maps that I've just, well, mentioned for other maps from the TLMC that he is liking the best. So, rather than playing Abyssal Reef and all of those very passive macro maps over and over and over again, we're going to be switching them out for some of the maps from this Team Liquid map contest, and at the very least we'll get some more data on what these maps are actually like. Because that's always the tricky part, right? So there's so many finalists. I think there's like 16 finalists in the TOMC. And then you have the map tournament. Maybe 50 games or so get played in total. I'm not exactly sure about the number, but let's say it's 50. That is still only like 3 games on average for each of the maps. It is not a whole lot. It is not a whole lot of, well, data to really draw any real conclusions from. So having more maps use these, or more tournaments rather, use these maps. Very, very handy. Well, it is a Reaper start this time around for Clem. He's trying to get a good bit of damage done. So far, not really achieving too much. Yeah. Hellion drives by this as well. There is a Stalker. No shield battery inside of the main base mineral line, so that dancing will continue. Reaper grenade just to boop a lot of these units around. Probes have now been pulled as well to try and get the wraparound, and he does achieve it. Honestly, really well managed there by Max. This obviously takes the wind out of the sails of the Terran, right? So if you're in the early game now, you're not going to be able to do much more. Maybe with the medevac, though, we can continue the harassment, but it all becomes very committed. And this is not quite the amount of damage, I don't think, that Clem was really hoping for. Okay, let's see. Big shout out, by the way, to the map-making community. I've said this a million times before, but I feel like across the board, they are quite underappreciated. So there is money on the line for the map tournaments, but it's by no means enough for any of the guys to, like, do this for a living or you know, not even remotely. I think it's a couple $100 for first place. And maps have a very significant impact on the balance of the game, and it takes a very long time to make a map. I think a lot of people may underestimate the amount of effort it takes to actually produce a map that then also turns out to be really good. It is countless hours of production and just reiteration and just thinking about it. Like, I mean, it can consume you. And ultimately, they're extremely pivotal to the success of StarCraft. Like, it's genuinely one of the most important things that you can do as a game developer, at least for competitive gaming. Having additional maps just changes everything. I mean, other than Counter-Strike, I suppose, where they've been playing Dust 2 for, I don't know, the last 20 years? Maybe more. Hey, is that a real BJ's Clam Shack? Jeez. Is it, okay, sure. One of my favorite establishments. I think this is actually an official Blizzard asset. I'm not exactly sure, but it is truly one of the assets of all time, yeah. Very pretty. Very nice looking map across the board, though. I mean, I'm never a huge fan of the super gray, scaly, high contrast, like relatively boring looking place, right? But, I mean, it's a nice visual across the board. I always like the beach vibes and the foresty vibes and all that sort of thing, but you know, every map needs to be distinguishable. And this is another thing. If you have a map pool with 9 maps, I do think that you should be able to just glance at the screen and at the very least sort of remember what the map layout looks like without even knowing the map name or really thinking about it too much. Every map in StarCraft 2 is, at least in the current map pool, all of the maps are visually distinct. Which is something that is actually very important, but quite difficult to set up. So you kind of need to make sure that all of the maps are slightly different, and they obviously, well, visually, they need to have like a different color scheme or just have like a different type of tile set. This is definitely not my personal favorite because it's super dark and gloomy, but it is certainly something that's memorable. Like a big cityscape. Pretty sick. Okay. Clem has finally been able to, by the way, open up with something that hasn't hurt him in the early game. So he's actually been able to get the stim pack and the combat shields and all the rest of it going. He's finished it up right now. This is what Clem has been trying to do this entire series long. And finally he's going to be able to get there. Oh my god, we're even going to pull the boys too. Clem is ready to apparently lay down the law on the other side of the map. Is MaxPax ready? So this is effectively a 2-base all-in from Clem. There is a little bit of a Zealot run-by here too on the other side of the map, and that I do really like. The Zealot run-by is amazing. However, does it also mean, though, that he doesn't have enough units at the same time at home? Because those Zealots may just be a necessity right over here on this side of the map. Well, excellent force fielding so far. I really like that shield battery. I'm a little surprised Max decided to go for this as his third base. I expected him to, well, take the other location. These Marines are now going to just continue stimming through all of this. There's no Colossus available just yet. A couple of Zealots, though, do run down from the high ground. Super tight defense here so far for Max. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be able to get the job done. No, I don't think it's enough. Marine Marauder Medevac reinforcements showing up as well. Despite this not being the best engagement for Clem, this is just one of those attacks that hits like an absolute sledgehammer. You have to be so confident. Now, it's not the end of the world yet, because of course Clem did sacrifice a lot of SCVs, and he did lose a whole lot of them too with this attack. Some Stalkers in the middle of the map trying to see if maybe they could pick off some of those reinforcements, but generally speaking, in a 2-base versus 2-base scenario, it is much better for Terran than it is for Protoss. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that the mineral count here is, yeah, it's nice and it's not fully saturated. So some SCV production will once more continue, and those yellow mining machines, the bane of every Protoss, they're going to slow everything down a ton, right? They're going to, like, allow Clem to just sit back for a bit longer and make a ton of troops. Jeez. I don't know what happened on Killer's Mile, but... Ay. Those are very flat-looking humans. Not exactly sure why this looks extremely cursed to me, but... Oh my god, there's huge scratch marks, too. Okay. Medevac drop inside of the main base. There is a Colossus now available. Guardian Shield, extremely nice. There is still a big chunk as well, though, of Protoss over here on the low ground. He wants to see if he can get the Medevac. Okay, does not quite get the Medevac. Dark Shrine now on the back of this, too. So we're transitioning into a two-base opener, I guess. Like a two-base, pretty much like an all-in here for Max. He can transition away from this. But do you really want to make that call? He's just going to look around. Check whether or not there's anything cheeky going on inside of the main base of the Terran. Is there like a third command center maybe somewhere building? Do you have to be addressing this anytime soon? Well, I believe that the little blur has been spotted, at least judging here by the Vikings. But maybe Clem doesn't want to waste a scan on it. Okay, he's got the energy for it now. And he does decide to indeed shut that observer down. It is important for Max to get another base going. Yeah, Terran can sit on these command centers for a while longer. Obviously, despite the fact that, like, you know, obviously he is a little bit lower in the work account and he's been forced to mine with mules. One other big advantage that Terran has is, well, you can fly the command center down to the low ground. So in these very dire scenarios where you can barely afford a nexus, and this does get scouted right now, Jimmy sees it. Yeah, Protoss needs another base. Clem can fly his command center across. I love the addition of the Dark Templar, though. I think you just sort of sprinkle in Dark Templar one at a time. With 2 CCs, there's just not a lot of detection available. So this is an excellent way just to be an absolute prick and to force a little bit of a hurry. Hallucinated Archon in the front as well. These are desperate times here for MaxPax. I just don't know if he's got the firepower. Yeah, I mean, the Dark Templar is doing well. It is one going down, but I think you immediately, yeah, you rewarp another one in. And then you send it towards that Terran army. Medevac drop is headed on over towards the main base. MaxPax sees this coming in. The other half of the Terran army trying to see if it can maybe find its way up towards the high ground. Those lasers are certainly going to win that part. Really well managed so far by Max. One of the Colossi, though, does go down as the Viking count has been climbing. The rocks, actually. Maybe the debris? Yeah, I'm not sure. These debris are actually super nice for base defense. Third Nexus is going to die again. Worker count right now, dead even. There is a single Dark Templar on the other side of the map. I really think we should have a Dark Templar here with this main army of the Terran player. I'm a little surprised we don't see. Yeah, there's one over here once more. I think we should continuously see one of those. With the Colossi down the drain, though, and that's the last one going down, I think the Marine Marauder Medevac army turns out to be a little bit too strong. That's a ton of workers going down, and despite the fact that also 8 SCVs, 9 SCVs fell on the other side of the map, I don't believe that there's going to be enough for MaxPax to hold on. There seem to be a couple of different name categories when it comes to maps. We have the ones that just sort of sound like a cool word. It's a bit of a lame category. Maybe we can come up with a better suggestion for that. But we have the first category for cool word. Then the second for like a Pokemon name. And then the third for like a medical ingredient. This map, I think this is a classic example of a medical product and one of the many ingredients that are on the back of the bottle. Selaginella? I mean, if you tell me that's an STD, I would probably believe you. I'm gonna have to Google it. Hold up. Maybe I'm offending people. I have no idea. Oh, yeah, I remember. This is the English moss. Apparently, this is the Latin name for a type of plant. Okay. Okay. Well, at the very least, we have a lot of plants growing all over it. Getting an STD from a plant doesn't sound suboptimal is all I'm saying. Yeah, this map name is certainly not my favorite. But it looks pretty. I'm not gonna deny that. I think the maps look excellent. And actually, purple and green is not a very common color scheme. It looks nice though. Okay, now this map, from my first impressions, looks absolutely ginormous. So we have this expansion over here. I guess we can consider that to be the natural. But there's this pocket base in the corners. And I've never really enjoyed pocket expansions very much personally. So this is essentially just a free-to-take base with a secondary ramp from the main that you can just take at the very beginning of the map. And I don't necessarily dislike it as like a general premise on a map, but usually I like it better when it puts you into at least like a slightly vulnerable position. So say, for example, you can take a pocket expansion easily, but you have to expand aggressively in the direction of the opponent. This kind of feels like a freebie. This kind of feels like a map that you can take a base on and you never have to actually worry about it. Like, it's essentially a free base. And maybe it's not bad to have like 1 or 2 maps like it, right? Again, like, it's not that I necessarily, by default, dislike passive maps. I'm just always concerned that we end up with a map pool where like 5 out of the maps are, you know, passive and like 90% of the games I cast. Because the pro gamers tend to really like those type of maps. The pro gamers tend to like the ones where they can play like 10-minute no rush. It's just as a viewer, as a caster, as an observer, right? I just don't think it's nearly as interesting as the maps that have non-stop action right from the very start. And I think it's important to have a variety. So whoever is in charge of choosing the next map pool in StarCraft 2, and I have absolutely no idea who that is, but whoever is in charge of that, please think about it. And I don't have high hopes, because last time you put King's Cove, Abyssal Reef, Neon Violet Square, and a bunch of other big maps in the map pool. Please think about it next time. Thank you. I would love that. I would love that very much if you thought about it a little bit. You know, maybe ask somebody's input. I mean, maybe you did, but certainly not mine. Okay, rant disabled. I talk to a lot of StarCraft people. I don't think anybody's aware of who actually handles this sort of thing. I mean, everybody knows that every single one of my opinions, right, is obviously the correct opinion. That's how that sort of thing goes. I have all the right opinions, and I would imagine that everybody is in full agreement with that. No, but it'd be nice if there was a little bit of discussion. Nobody ever asked my opinion in the StarCraft world anymore. Back in the day, there used to be people reaching out. Interestingly enough, and this is going to sound a little sad, but back in the day, Blizzard would be in continuous conversation with a lot of the community members. And these days, everybody that I ever spoke to at Blizzard no longer works there. Literally none. Take that for what it's worth. This is going to be a very passive start. Yeah. We don't really have to expect a whole lot of early game aggression, although this is a Blink Stalker opener for Max. He's done it off of just 2 gateways. So he's adding on a bunch of other ones right now, but the 3rd Nexus is already finishing up very early on. And it's nice to have a greedy map like this, right? It's nice to be able to go for something a bit more cheeky. Cloak Banshee goes in. Trying to see if it maybe can get a bit of damage in. Yeah, good number of probes. We do have a 2nd Banshee as well somewhere out on the map. There it goes. And apparently there is enough dead space over here right above the purple, pinky, whatever it is. Lilac. This color. It's just hanging out above the waters. Doesn't look very safe. If you bait in that for too long, or you bathe into it for too long, you get some Salaginella, dude. Gotta be careful. You'll be vomiting up puke, pink, and... Oh my god, look at this green stuff over here too, man. It's not good for your health. What is this? It's like a giant foot. You know, like the bottom of like a mammoth's paw? This is what I picture it would look like. I think it's supposed to be a rock. But somehow it looks like a very... It's got a little bit of a furry rock. I guess that, again, is the freaking moss that apparently the map is named after. Yeah, look at that. There's a lot of mammoth paws. Look at those calves of the mammoth paw. That's insane. Now, as you may have already guessed, this is going to be one of my personal, lesser enjoyed maps. Yes. Just because we're 7 minutes into it right now, and, you know, we've seen a bit of aggression, but... I'm curious, actually. Do you agree that this is too passive? I know there's a lot of people that love passive maps, but I really just, over all the years, have not enjoyed these type of maps very much anymore. When you can expand away from the opponent into free bases, and then your additional base right now, for example, the one that Clem is taking here, right? Like the one that MaxPax took a while ago, also is nicely tucked away. You're effectively inviting 20 minutes no rush. With a little bit of aggression, maybe, from time to time, but the rush distance is very big. Like, it's a very long map. The expansions are easy to take. You can get away with a lot of greed. And I just don't know if I like this type of, say, way to do greedy maps. I would much prefer something a little bit different. But anyway. The debris. I mean, you can kill it, but you can also wait. Apparently, right before the 8-minute mark is when they also run out of HP on this map. Okay, there's a good chunk of army here for Clem. He is now also dealing, though, with a couple of zealots on the other side of the map, although those have already been taken care of. Yeah, ultimately, it's all about a healthy mix. I would like to see, like, maybe 3 to 4 standard maps. Maybe 1 to 2 big macro maps. And then the rest, craziness. I like the craziness. I just think it's the most interesting thing you can do. That doesn't really require a lot of effort from Blizzard. To keep the game fresh, I think having some of those weirder maps is actually very important. The only problem is, of course, that... Ooh, that SCV! Ooh, that Widow Mine almost killed all the SCVs. Obviously, the main concern, right, with maps that are very weird and very wacky is balance. Like, that's the main problem. If it turns out, like, for example, Terran is very dominant on... For example, say this map, it looks amazing for both Terran and for Protoss here, right? Not so good for Zerg. I would imagine Zergs would just automatically veto something like this. And if you're playing a best of 7, you only get 1 veto. If you're playing a best of 9, well, good luck. And that's always the main concern. Sometimes you'll get a map pool that favors one race extremely much over the others. Or you get one where the balance is just completely out of whack. And it's one of the weird, like... So oftentimes the way that it works, right? So say, for example, right now, Zerg is underperforming a little bit. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. I mean, there will be somebody that disagrees with it, but the statistics don't lie. Everybody that isn't Serral seems to be struggling a lot more than they used to like a year ago, right? So there's a good chance that the maps we're going to see right now are technically all a little bit better for Zerg. Because that is the general premise around the, you know, around the StarCraft community. Zerg seems to be a bit struggly. So we go for maps that are good for the Zerg players. But at the same time, there's a very good chance that Blizzard, whenever they get like 3 minutes to think about StarCraft again, that they will also be looking at the game and are like, hey, Zerg is kind of underperforming. We're going to cook up a patch that is going to launch in like 3 months from now. And then we end up with one of those situations where first you get a buff map-wise, and then you get a map, you get a buff balance-wise. And it's a weird, like, double synchronization issue that we keep running into over the last couple years with StarCraft, where you get, like, a double whammy every time. And I think Protoss currently has won that double whammy, you know? Like, the maps are pretty good for Protoss. The balance is really nice for Protoss, too. You just end up, with a really nice... but it's just a bit of a disconnect. I really hope that at some point Microsoft is going to change the way that all of that works. Because it's just a little bit too slow. Well, anyways. All of my yapping aside, this, or aside rather, this is all very macro focused now. And both players have finally arrived at the 11-ish minute mark and also at a maxed out state. So they can do whatever they like now. For Clem, it's going to be more of the same, but in addition, he's going to add on ghosts. MaxPax is going into Dark Templar Blink. He's going into Disruptors. We have additional Robo facilities coming up as well. How many Robos do we have at the moment? Just the one. So we can start rolling the balls around. If you're a fan of bowling, MaxPax is your man. It's a lot of Zealots, by the way. Yeah, 26 Zealots. I think this map is too big. Yeah, just a bit too much. Big matter of fact drop headed towards the main base. Clem trying to see if we can make this map at least feel a little bit smaller by forcing Protoss to return back home. I think Clem is loving this type of style though, because he has got so much mobility. He's picked up a bunch of Zealots now in the middle of the map too. Those Zealot run-bys do not have an easy time to go around. Additional Robo facilities once more coming up. So we're going up to 3 Robos now. Keep on building them. We go for the full Protoss mech army, which I always think is pretty cool. Fusion Core on the production tab here for Clem. So this is one of the problems, right, that Protosses will run into in the later stages of a map where they need to go and find an answer to Liberators. MaxPax generally not somebody who will transition towards, for example, Tempests. I think Tempests are an excellent choice against, well, mass Liberator-based armies, but MaxPax rarely chooses for them. Instead, he wants to go for the more blinky focused unit composition. So he just keeps making more and more Stalkers, and he tries to see if he can overwhelm the Terran or maybe hit them from a couple different angles all at once. This is the perfect spot for MaxPax to go into Tempest if he wants to, and considering he's not doing it now, I don't think we're ever really going to see him focus on it. Instead, he's going to go full counterattacks and try to go for a lot of surrounds, a lot of wraparounds on these Terran armies. Ooh, those Novas were very close. Okay, 9 SCVs have gone down, and Clem clearly not achieving much with any of those attacks. Jimmy over here awkwardly making the AI behave differently. That's still 13 SCVs. Planetary Fortress is about halfway done. Dark Templar was hitting it for a little bit, but Clem keeps it around for a little bit longer. Okay. And this is a cool army composition from MaxPax, so it's extremely ground-focused. Clem is desperately trying to build up that air-based unit composition here, but he just doesn't have the time to really make that transition. Because every time he wants to go into those Liberators, he's going to get hit in the face. So as long as MaxPax keeps on the aggression, it's difficult for Clem to really make that call. And obviously, you can make multiple starports. But you do need supply available too. And 2 Liberators is not nearly as useful as like 12. So, let's see. Now, Caduceus Reactor finishing up for Clem. +3/+3 finishing up as well here for the French Terran. MaxPax in the meantime taking a big base over here at the bottom. This one feels so far away for what Terran is doing. I mean, same for this expansion up here. Clem is going to be able to secure that one with relative ease, even though a Dark Templar was on top of it. It is going to take a long time before the Protoss player will be able to make his way up there again, although maybe he's trying to head in that direction. He's got his Google Maps on at this point. At the next junction, turn left. MaxPax is trying to navigate right now. Where did he find that command center again? Where was that planetary? Somewhere in another country. Well, Liberator going around. Do we have advanced ballistics yet? We don't. Although Liberator production at this point has begun, so I'm assuming that we will be going into that research here momentarily inside of the Fusion Core. The balls are still rolling though, and that's where MaxPax is so dangerous. Those Disruptors just deal so much damage. There's the Liberator range research coming up inside of the Fusion Core. Great arc over here by Clem. Getting that concave advantage. Negating a lot of the splash damage here from that Protoss army. Still though, there's so many Disruptors on the back of this. Nexus, by the way, in the far bottom right, even though I thought it was going to be really difficult to attack. Clem has just hit it. I think that was a drop that was heading towards that pocket expansion, but yeah, MaxPax has been parking Stalkers over there. Maybe it's actually time to pull these into the main army. Maybe like build a bunch of photon cannons and then send these units in with the main force, because you do need them eventually. Apparently we gotta go into a Stargate for now. So maybe eventually we will go into a late game Protoss army too. Basically MaxPax, there we go. He's hoping to bowl strike after strike after strike. That's the build, that's the strat. Try to cause so much havoc, so much chaos, that Terran can't possibly be looking at everything. But this is where Clem is so dangerous. Like at some point Clem will start screaming, his hair will turn blonde, and he will start levitating and all that, and then he will start casting Kamehamehas, and he'll be super quick. This is what he generally does, and it's, you know, pretty much a blur. Clem's actually super fast in these kind of scenarios. Look at this. 460 average actions per minute throughout this game. We do have a Protoss flank, though, coming in. And the APM may be very high. It seems to me that MaxPax is still winning this fight. Great flank right there by the Protoss. Gonna be able to push this away. It's also because the Vikings weren't present, though. And it's also because those Stalkers have now indeed joined with the main army. Liberator production, though, is well underway now. I would love to see a fusion core, or a fleet beacon, rather. Maybe some additional Stargates. But it's a difficult goal to make, because despite the fact that MaxPax has been mining a lot, he's not a rich man. Oh, what? This is... Okay, never mind. I thought he was going to go Tempests, but that's not the play at all. We're just building... Maybe it is the play, I don't know. We're just building a Void Ray to deal with Liberators that may go around the perimeter. It's not something we ever see Hero do. But I guess that's mostly because... Oh, big hit. I was going to roast the all army hotkey, but, you know. Yeah, these guys were ridiculously good. A little bit of first-person view. This is what MaxPax was looking at whilst playing this game. A little bit of target firing, a little bit of continued production, a little bit of bowling. One of the weird things about bowling, at least bowling in StarCraft 2, is that you rarely actually look at the pins. So you know, like in a Michael Bay movie, how the cool guys never look at explosions? That's basically what MaxPax is doing too. But you kind of need to get a feeling for how much damage you've truly done. So you don't really want to waste the APM. I'm going to take control of the camera again. You don't really want to waste the APM looking at the disruptor hits. But also, if you don't look at them, you don't actually know your position in the game. Good bit of damage now. Those Dark Templar run-bys are absolutely insane. And there's the Mama ship coming up. Really? Okay. So you know what? Mothership is basically the killing blow in Zerg versus Protoss, right? When Protoss gets it going and Zerg doesn't have a lot of money, it's, well, essentially lights out for the Zerg player. But this is very likely not going to be for a big engagement. Instead, I think it is going to be for a mass recall. Because in this matchup, generally you will have a bunch of Vikings up in the air to deal with all of the Colossi. Colossi at this point are dead, so the Vikings are kind of derping around a bit. You do want to keep them around, because if the Vikings are all dead, then Protoss is going to go back to Colossi, which is very annoying. And you want to be using your starports right now to make libs. Ugly fight here for MaxPax. Great engagement, of course, for Clem. Yeah, I think this is for a mass recall, but MaxPax honestly is kind of running out of steam here a bit. Although he still has a lot of money in the bank. At least for Zealots. He can warp in another 25 Zealots. Great fight there for Clem, actually. Clem was looking really dire, but Clem is always microing his butt off in these scenarios. Dark Templar in the meantime, though, up north, denying another base. Clem scans down south, and he sees that indeed there are two bases. The Mothership was originally not produced to be able to deal damage here, but I guess she can use lasers. Go on! Don't be shy, Mama! Mama's scared. Mama is scared. It's okay. Dark Templar, get cold all the way back home. It's a little awkward now. Now you have 400 minerals, 400 gas caught up in this thing. I think it was supposed to be a surprise. Not a very fun surprise if you're a Terran player, but one that MaxPax was really looking forward to. Sometimes you do gift giving more so for yourself. Yeah, and that's what MaxPax wanted to give Clem. He wanted to give his own personal happiness. These bases are becoming absolutely critical, though. MaxPax has way more minerals in the bank, but not enough gas. Clem is still maxed out. This is a banger of an engagement. He wants to go after the Vikings, mostly because that opens up the Colossi, and then also, of course, the Mothership once more. Planetary Fortress falls. Dark Templar still going around. The entirety of the Terran army, though, is trying to chase all of this down. But MaxPax is able to slither away. Liberators, by the way, can hit, well, flying units as well, but it's not a lot of damage. Ah, it gets spotted. Mama, no. Mama, where are you going? Mama's going out to get milk. Well, we'll probably never see her again. Where are you going? What are we doing? No one wants to fight. Everybody's scared of the man with a gun. Dark Templar still being a nuisance, though, and they are denying a lot of these units coming across the map. Supply count still very close to being even. Here we go. Mass recall in the direction, trying to see if we can collapse. On top of this Terran army, Liberators are rolling forward. This is a bit of a disjointed fight, though, because MaxPax wanted to go for the sandwich, but then the reinforcing units from Clem showed up, and it turns out the sandwichy became the sandwicher. Or the sandwicher became the sandwichy? Anyway, there is layers of bread upon layers of bread. And that was obviously a phenomenal fight for Clem. GG gets called. And that means we are gonna go to game number 5. Okay, next up. Match point for Clem. We find ourselves on a map called Antimatter. Now, I've always thought Antimatter is a cool name. Yeah. Maybe we need to start writing down cool words so map makers can use them. I will dub one here. Okay, here's one that I like. Oculus. Heck, that's a cool name, I think. Oculus LE. I think that would be cool. Maybe we can do Salmonella LE. We can like rename that one, whatever the name was. I don't remember. Okay, Antimatter. Haven't seen a game on this one yet. Oh no, I have seen a game on this one a while ago. Or maybe it was a map with a similar layout. I remember looking at a map that had these like electrical wires going all over it, and it had a very blue... Oh no, I've not seen this before. I mean, do you think you get a bonus boost if you stim your units inside of that giant lightning symbol? Is Harry Potter somewhere present? Like, what do we do? Wingardium Leviosa, MaxPax. The one that chooses the wizard. Mr. Clem. Let's see. Hogwarts Alley. Hyperion Drift. Doppelganger. Echo Rift. We have some bangers here. Many suggestions. Honestly, I feel like this is one of the few things that AI has been invented for. Just ask an artificial intelligence. Like, upload a picture of the map, tell it it's supposed to be like a certain vibe, and then tell it to be a StarCraft. Like, it will roll out 100 options within 3 seconds. And none of them are going to be Salmonella LE or Maganatha. I haven't actually seen a game yet on one of the new maps, but one of the TLMC finalists is literally called Maganatha rather than Jaganatha, which is a map that I cast like 100 games on. And I think I would probably say that that is my least liked map as far as the map name goes. I will never shut up, by the way, about map names. It's really not that big a deal. But also, it matters to me. Well, let's see. This feels like, oh my god, there's a lot going on here. Look at this. What? Is that energy or is it liquid? I guess liquid can, or energies can, anyways. This map is very cool looking. What is happening here, though? I really wonder. I would love to see some of the engagements take place over here in the middle of the map. You know, it'd be cool if we had like a speed up boost over here. Kind of like Mario Kart, you know, where like you have like little lines, and then when you drive over them, you boost forward. That'd be kind of nice. There's a lot of energies though, rippling all over this map. And looking at the mini-map, it looks extremely complex. But I don't think the map layout is really that crazy. So we want more of an in-base expansion. This is the type that I like a little bit better, like I was trying to say last time around. So it's like one that you expand in the direction of your opponent with. Then there's that low ground base over here. We have another base right next to it. No, well, ramp going down to the low ground until a little bit later. But, I mean, this would always be your first expansion. Maybe not as Zerg, but as Terran and Protoss, I think you always want to be taking that base first. Yeah, the cables make this mini-map look very complex. I think that's what it is anyway. For some reason, the minimap does not look like the map. Am I crazy? Like, the minimap is green and yellow and stuff, but doesn't really reflect what the map looks like to me. Anyway, layout. Layout-wise, this all looks pretty solid. Although, absolutely massive. And then, of course, also with an in-base expansion, so you can imagine how I feel about it. Widowmine drop going in right now for Clem. Oh, and it does not actually go very far. Yikes. You were the chosen one, little Medevac. You were meant to destroy the Protoss, not join them. And that right there is the Protoss dream, of course, whenever they can shut this sort of thing down before it lays eggs. I really do like this kind of vibe, though. This is cool. Yeah, it's like a liquidy electro charge. Although something's cursed here. Look at this. It's like an Escher painting. This looks like it's blocked off over here, and then over here it looks like it's open. What is this? Maybe this is one of those like police station mirrors. You know, where it's like reflecting on one side but see-through on the other. Anyway, Stalker's now inside of a little plane. Oh, pick him up, pick him up, pick him up! Oh, we didn't have to cut it that close. All right, nice control, of course, by MaxPax, who's now also blinking past the main base supply depot. Goes straight into the main and gets a single siege tank. The cost of a couple Stalkers. Stalkers, in the meantime, continue dancing as well on the other side of the map. This is only triple gate this time around for Max. He's already building a third Nexus. Yeah, this map feels really big. Something's weird about the map layout on the minimap. Sorry, I just keep looking at the minimap and I see a lot of green. I'm trying to decipher where this would be on the minimap, but it's just not there at all. And we have all these weird cables going around, but it seems like the minimap needs to be regenerated or something. I have no idea how it works, but it doesn't seem like the minimap reflects the map, which is really strange. I've never really closely looked at minimaps before, but the fact that this one is green and yellow. Okay, let's see. The dancing can continue, but now there's a lot of Marines. The follow-up, though, for Max is going to be Charge. So he's going into Colossus, and he will be able to pump out a ton of units here in just a moment. But even though this hasn't been a very good early game for Clem, he is going to be able to get Stimpak, Combat Shields, +1 Infantry, all the rest of it done. And I don't think there's really anything MaxPax can do when Terran decides to take this expansion down to the low ground. And that's once more because of the pocket base. I actually think on Neon Violet Square, so the map that we currently have in the map pool, we have one pocket base, right? Like a super easy to acquire base in the far corners of the map. Those are kind of cool because they only have 4 mineral fields. I think that makes them way better. Like if you're going to do a pocket base, at the very least make it, like discourage players to take them, but also still keep them useful in specific cases. Like say, for example, you want to do something very gas heavy. Since it has 4 mineral fields, but 2 regular gas geysers. I think that's pretty neat. Matter of fact, drop over here, though. Scouted as Clem decided to move out. Lovely moves by Max. He sees everything coming in from a mile away, and it means that he can react to all of it. But Clem's macro has been extremely solid. They can just walk over the orange. Yeah. Think it's hot? Could be warm. Okay. Matter of fact's going in. This is exactly like Harry Potter Scar over here. Isn't that neat? I read on the internet once that somebody said that they thought that the Harry Potter Scar in the movies were like kind of lame because they had always envisioned it, like they had envisioned it as like when reading the books as like a real proper lightning strike. And lightning strikes have a lot of interesting patterns. This is like the most cartoony version of like some sort of lightning, and I never really thought about it. But now I'm in agreement, yes. That little scar on Harry Potter's face in the movies could have been a lot cooler, dude. They could have made it a lot more interesting. Anyway. The Colossi are now ready to go, and that means that MaxPax is, gonna be able to defend this with relative ease. Clem has a lot of units. Maybe this drop can be a bit more successful. Recall. Ooh, that's always dangerous. You never really know where any of those Colossi are going to appear, but this time around, it's all in the right spot. Zealot run by in the meantime on the other side. We also do have the Terran still trying to make a move forward, going after what looks like the 4th Nexus of Protoss. Zealots get cleaned up inside of the natural mineral line. Zealots over here also working on whatever they can hit. One of the Colossi did get shot down right there by the siege tanks. Good target firing by Clem. And yes, top-level Terran players do target manually with siege tanks. This wasn't really done like 5 years ago, but these days, targeting with siege tanks is the norm. Yeah, maybe 5 years ago is not accurate. 5 years ago was 2020. Maybe 10 years ago is more accurate. Doesn't sound right when I say that 5 years ago was 2020. Anyway, Marine drops will continue. And Clem is really starting to pick up the pace once more. I think Clem really enjoys playing the big maps. I don't really believe MaxPax is loving it too much, but it always seems like Clem is in full control in these type of scenarios. Armory just about to finish up. Clem is going to be able to go into the 2-2 research. He does have a second NG bay, so he's going to be able to research both of those upgrades at the same time. Yeah, from my personal opinion at least, I think this map and then the previous one, they are just too large and too easy to expand on. I preferred this over Salmonella or whatever it was. And I don't think it's like by default bad, and maybe having one of those maps in the map pool is neat. But I am not in love with it. Nope. I mean, we got some grand scale. That's nice. Huge armies marching around the map. But in a way, it kind of feels a little bit less strategic when you get super big maps like this, where it's really difficult and pretty much impossible to keep exact tabs on what the opponent is doing, so you get a bit of luck. Like, say, for example, this medevac drop. You never really know. Like, you can never really check whether or not everything's been scouted. So, Clem kind of just crosses his fingers and goes into the main base and hopes for the best. Well, smaller maps is much more... I think you have a lot more of a chance that things can work out for you. It's the same for these Zealot run-bys, of course. Sensor towers, extremely useful, but a bit nerfed with the latest multiplayer balance patch. The radius of the structure is not nearly as big, but it's also a bit cheaper. Okay, it looks like we will have a clash in the middle of the map. Neither player really aiming for it. Good storm, big storm. I don't think Max can really fight this, though, because he just doesn't seem to have the same bulk to his army. Medevac drop now also inside of the main base, once more being a nuisance. This is that same medevac from, or the same two medevacs from earlier. Getting some really nice value, though, from each and every one of those drops. Fusion core coming up again. Maybe the Zealot run-by can achieve something similar. New Nexus being acquired in the far top right. Whew. Very nice. Clem, though, much richer in this game than he was in the previous one. He's gonna have to take a 5th base here momentarily if he wants to continue growing economically. We get some EMPs down as well onto the static defense and whatever else we can hit. Snipeys also very nice, but this Nexus is just gonna get absolutely melted. Liberator production once more underway. Good storm. But the damage has already been done by Clem, and that's exactly what he was hoping for. Zealot's not really as impactful. New command centers are building left, right, and center now. Ah, Clem decides to knock down the rocks. I figured he was going to take the expansion over here at like the 6 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock position. But instead he's moving on over to, yeah, the expansion over to the right. I think it's about time we knock down these mineral fields too. Mine them out, I mean. Slow zone here, making it difficult to really back up though. And that is something to keep in mind. If Zealots are charging, you're not going to be able to back up to the safety of that high ground very easily. Okay. Good armies here, though, for both players. MaxPax is always very split up. He rarely has all of his units in one big ball. And it makes this game look like this army doesn't look nearly as impressive as that of the Terran. But obviously, it's because he's got a lot of units that are just sort of in different locations. And he's got a lot of different control groups worth of troops. Sometimes, though, when you're not all army hotkeying, you accidentally misrally one of your units. And Clem immediately punishes that mistake. Rocks over here down from the 4th base of Terran also have been knocked down. But there is a planetary in that spot, so more Protoss army was going to be a necessity anyways. But some good storms. Liberator range, though, coming up again. Man, he's blanketing all of those psionic storms on top of all of those Terran units. I think both of the players are starting to feel the effects of playing a long series. Micro looking a little bit less tidy than at the beginning of these games. EMP? Oh, massive EMP right there from Clem. He got all of those units right in the very middle. Feedback still available, though, but no storms. As far as I can tell, at the very least, those Archons, those Zealots, everything is just going to melt a lot quicker. Although I say that, the amount of Protoss bulk that is still available is looking absolutely massive. Clem's backing up to the safety of the planetary fortress, and that is ultimately what is going to force MaxPax to go back home. Wait for some of the reinforcements. Liberators, though, coming up. The count is slowly going up, right? And that's the dangerous part here for Max. The only answer he's really got against it is Blink Stalker. And while Blink Stalker definitely can work, you do need an awful lot of them. Another good storm. Ooh, big storm. He didn't even move. 80 damage dealt. Over the course of a couple of seconds. Cloak also available, but the Ghost ran out of energy. More storms are available. Stalkers blink underneath the Liberators. EMPs did blanket once more on top of all of this Protoss army. Another lip coming around the site. Good targeting there as well by MaxPax, but again, backing up to the safety of that planetary fortress. This is the anchor, man, of this entire setup. I don't know if Clem purposefully built a planetary here, realizing it, or if he just sort of autopiloted, because normally the 4th base gets a planetary fortress on it. But man, is this a valuable position. Clem's been backing up to that every single chance. And it's working out. Yeah. I think he's now realizing the amount of value. Honestly, I wonder if he should go double planetary here. Well, that orbital command just died. MaxPax, by the way, is continuously building immortals now, so he really wants to break this position. I just hope for his sake that he's not gonna like run his head into the wall another 17 times without really making a whole lot of headway, because it's not going to be the best thing to do. Another orbital command coming up. Good snipe. High Templar falls. Okay. Liberator going around the site. Clem was punched into a corner for a little bit, but obviously Clem is pretty much the perfect Terran player. Incredible defense, incredible offense, phenomenal game sense, incredible speed. incredibly handsome. You know, he's got it all. Where else do we take this game now? What do you do here as MaxPax? Well, MaxPax has got all the resources he needs. Storm going around the side. Okay, once more, these EMPs, man. The EMPs and Storms in this game and this entire series, honestly, have been phenomenal. Oh, maybe a bit of an overextension because those libs are not yet here. We have another High Templar flank coming in as well from the north. Command Center itself taking a lot of damage, but that one was not a planetary yet. Another snipe will shut down another one of those heroes with capes. Oh, he's bleeding out a few of those Protoss units. Yeah, the libs. The libs are starting to pwn him now. Yeah, and this is where these sort of like Stalker-based armies, in my mind, always sort of fizzle out. I mean, this is still certainly winnable for MaxPax. But MaxPax pretty much always refuses to go into any sort of Skytles at this point in the game. It doesn't look to me like he really believes that that is the right thing to do. So Tempests, even though they're like a little bit easier to make nowadays, I was told by the StarCraft 2 subreddit that Tempest would be overpowered now with the latest patch. You know what? I don't agree. But anyway, it is something that we don't really... Oh my god, there's a ghost literally within this army. Pretending to be a Protoss unit. It's the strangest changeling I've seen in a while. But yeah, now with the Liberator count being so big, we're going up to 11 libs, you can't really deal with it with just Stalkers anymore. I mean, it's technically possible. Maybe if the Colossi push away the entirety of the ground army and then the Stalkers can come in from around the side and you just sort of chase down as many of those Terran flyers as possible. But Clem's main goal here is just to build up the numbers. He's got them now. In the last game, we saw MaxPax going up towards the Stargate and then eventually a fleet beacon and then eventually into a mothership to try and flank. I think that was a good plan. But yeah, it's not going to happen against an army like this. One of the Colossi kind of misrallied. No room in the prism. So the Colossus falls immediately. Big fight over here as well, by the way. Clem helping his opponent just a moment here. Just trying to knock down the rocks for him. This is going to force the entirety of the Protoss army to now retreat. Sorry, Jimmy. There was no room in the plane for you. Good blink. Snipes one of the Metavex down. I think in the late game, as a Protoss here, you kind of need to have a fleet beacon. You need to be able to go all around the map. The Mothership is so critical in that department, but so expensive as just a recall tool. EMPs all around. He was trying to hope and get maybe a lucky snipe on some of those High Templar. Prism was not standing still to unload just yet. Medevac drop inside of that pocket base. Storms are going to be absolutely critical here, as now it's Clem's turn to be aggressive. Oh, there was a Stalker hiding inside of that thing. I don't think you can really go down this alleyway, dude. Yeah, if you go down this corridor, yeah. Clem's saying, yo, please walk through the corridor into my Liberators. Please be my guest. Clem's a great host. If he invites you over, you put on your best clothes. Might get a Liberator hit to the face now. A little suboptimal. Okay. New Nexus building here for Max. New Command Center's building as well. Another starport coming up. That is starport number 3. I'm honestly not sure that Clem really needs it. MaxPax is starting to fizzle out a bit. I mean, he still has income and he still has a good army. It just feels to me like this isn't really gonna go anywhere. It really feels like he bashed his head against that Terran wall so many times, and it kind of looked like he was achieving something. In an alternate universe, he would have already won this series, like, you know, 4-0. But a lot of the builds and a lot of the strategies here that MaxPax is executing in this series, they're just barely not working. And it's not that it's really that much... It's not like Clem is playing that much better than him. It's not that really anything grand needs to change. It's just that across the board, Clem seems to be ever so slightly better today. Must be frustrating too if you're MaxPax, because you dominate every other Terran. Like, genuinely, when you see MaxPax play against any other Terran, he destroys them. It's not even close. But he plays against Clem about 6 times a week. And Clem is just a monster. The one week, it's MaxPax winning everything. The next week, it is Clem winning everything. Rarely do they go back and forth, but across time, it seems like lately, yeah, maybe Clem is winning the majority of their encounters again. But across time, I think this year so far, it's probably about a 50-50. Either way, this time around in this best of 7, it is none other than the world champion of StarCraft 2 who obtains the victory 4-1 over MaxPax.